What's up, guys? It's Bart Hanson here from CrushLivePoker.com, and today I'm going to go over quite the fun hand here that was played by me on Live at the Bike last week in this crazy 5-5 ante game, which is a $5 game, $5 blind game with a $5 ante, and it plays like between a 10-20 and a 20-40 no limit hold'em. There were lots of $50 straddles, things like that. Here we actually didn't straddle, but you can see Eli in seat 3 opens here. He wasn't that deep with about 1,700. Francisco calls. I've got about 11,000, and I pick up good old Pocket Rockets, and I decide to 3-bet Pocket Rockets here, obviously, to $260. Now, I will say that I will usually make this a larger 3-bet, but because Eli was so short, I thought maybe if I made it smaller, it might induce him to maybe shove or something like that. Also, I'm not overly concerned with him calling basically what is 200 more with only a $2,000 stack. But I think if the stacks were larger, I probably would have 3-bet a lot more. Now, probably the most important part of this hand comes right here. And great camera work by the Live at the Bike guys, by the way. Take a look over here at Eric in seat 7. Let's take a look at his hands here, right here. You look at his left hand. He sort of goes to pull it out and then sort of pauses and kind of pump fakes and then thinks better of what he was going to do, which was basically going to put out a re-raise. Let's take a look at that again. Look at his hand right there. That is not a fake tell. It looked like he was going to re-raise, and then he basically thought better of it when he realized that I had 3-bet. And by the way, I was at 27% VPIP, which means I was playing 27% of hands, which is sort of medium to loose in a live no limit game. I was the tightest guy at the table by like 10%. So he thought better of it, but I just knew that he wanted to basically put in the re-raise, and I just thought almost right away that I was like, okay, he's got like a hand like tens, he's got jacks, he's got queens, he's got something like that. A lot of times when low stakes players say, oh, I have people on these hands, it's really kind of a lot of BS, but I thought that that was a pretty liable tell. You can see both guys calling up front, so now we see the pot in a 3-bet pot, 4 ways. It's over $1,000, 985 with a couple of spades. Now, it's not the best flop in the world for me here, but like I said, I'm not concerned about Eli, who's the pre-flop raiser over there in C3. You can see he's got 7-8 offsuit. He's got about a pot and a half, bet size left. Sometimes you check this back in a multi-way spot with aces. You'd like to have the ace of spades in your hand, but here against these guys that are just calling just a ton, I mean, this is almost like a typical 1-2 or 2-3 live no limit game. I'm certainly going to bet my aces here for value. Really, the only person that I have to really worry about is Francisco over in seat 4. But something sort of strange happens here. Eric now, I bet about $625, and Eric now check raises to 1,800. So I bet 625. Eric check raises to 1,800, and like I said, going right back to pre-flop, that little stutter, I have him on a hand like tens through queens almost all day, and a lot of people that haven't seen Eric play would say, well, he's not going to check raise this board with these hands. It's something that Eric does. He will check raise these types of overpairs on boards like that. I've seen him check raise like 9 deuce on a board like this on a 9 high board. So this actually didn't really have me all that scared. I just thought that he was making a protection raise. Now you can see over here, Eli in seat number 3, he's just tanking and tanking and tanking. He only has about 1,500 left. So if he were to basically go all in, he's calling for less. So by the way that he was thinking about this, I really thought that he could have had a very mediocre hand, kind of like exactly what he has, which was 7-8 offsuit here for a kind of middle pair and a gut shot. If you've never seen this show on Live at the Bike, they do this game every Tuesday, the ante game, from 6 Pacific to 10 Pacific, and it is wild. It is a huge game, but it plays with mostly recreational players, and you see very, very wide ranges. And that's why I was actually pretty confident about my hand right here as Eli continues to tank and tank and tank. And now he is finally going to move all in. Now, the only issue that I would have had with my hand is if Francisco had woken up the guy in seat 4 to my immediate right, who actually has me covered, if he had woken up and called as well, or I put in put in a check raise 3-bet, which basically means re-raising, Eric's check raise. At that point, then I probably would have just had to be done with the hand. You can see Eli finally puts it in, and now Francisco insta-muck. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. I'm not going to 3-bet Eric right now. Here, I think that would be a little bit crazy with these stack sizes, but like I said, I was fairly confident that I had the best hand against Eric, and I really thought that he had a hand that he was going to 3 or 4-bet with, and then sort of pulled it back. And this would have made sense to me if he had a hand like tens, jacks, queens, something like that. Of course, I have the option too. I could actually put a 3-bet in, but I'm not going to really do that with any part of my range here. So I decide to make the call, and you can see that the pot now has ballooned up to just about over $6,000, $6,500, something like that. And as the dealer is counting the chips off, I'm just saying to myself, man, I want to see like a clean turn. I'm sort of expecting Eric to check to me on the turn. We're going to have a massive main pot, and then we're going to start building a side pot. Now, if you don't know what that is, it means that Eric and I both have money on the side here. We already have, like I said, around 6K in the main, and we have to beat Eli, but we have a side pot going, which is just between him and I. And you get into some weird situations with side pots because usually people don't bluff side pots because they have to beat the third guy in the main pot. So that's all going through my head. Turns the 4 of clubs. That's a pretty good card for me. And this is some old school Crush Live poker stuff that I've talked about on my site quite a bit in terms of beating the live low stakes games, in terms of bet pattern recognitioning. Eric comes out and he basically comes and bets the turn for a smaller amount than he check raised on the flop. Now, obviously, this situation is a little bit crazy because of the fact that it's a multi-way 3-bet pot. The pot's getting close to $10,000. We already have a guy all in, but I've talked about on some of my training material how you bet a hand like kings on a Jack Deuce 7 board heads up at a $5 blind no limit game or a $3 blind no limit game, and then the board comes out, so you bet the flop on Jack 7 Deuce, and a guy makes a small check raise, and you don't know if he's got like a set, 2-pair, or just a jack. When you call, if he follows up on the turn with a bet that's the same size or less, it is a telltale sign of weakness. The same thing can sort of be said here. I even considered raising the turn at this point. I mean, Eric bet 1,500. I really considered raising the turn here to something like 4,000, and then possibly get the money in. In retrospect, queen, tens through queens, it's not as crazy a line as it looks on paper if I think that the guy is going to call now. But I said, you know what? Let me just call here, and if he checks the river on a blank, I'll blast it. We've got now 3,000 on the side, 6,000 in the main, so we're looking at about a $9,000 pot. I've got about 8,000 left, and we roll to the river, and the river's the 6 of clubs. The 6 of clubs comes off on the river, and that's obviously a shitty card for me in the sense that it puts a one-liner to a straight out there, so anyone with a 7 would have a straight. Now, I don't think that Eric has a 7. I thought that Eric had an overpair. Like I said, the entire time, I was fully expecting Eric to actually check this river. And boy, if he checked the river here, spades have basically busted out. I don't have the ace of spades in my hand. It's probably very, very close. I could actually consider going for super duper thin value with aces if I thought that Eric might call with queens or jacks. The weird part of this hand, though, is that the main pot obviously is protected, so it doesn't really look like someone's going to be bluffing a lot on the side. But remember, now we have a $3,000 side pot, though, too. Now, a lot of you are going to say, oh, you would never bet aces at the end. I'm telling you, I've made super thin value bets like this if you can sometimes peg somebody down to one hand. But the sucky part about this spot for me is that I thought that Eli sort of had a hand like he did, and it was going to be very hard for me to win against both players. Now, what's funny here is that Eli in the background is saying, I need to pee, And, you know, he had just, had a lot of water or something like that. So he's trying to figure out like what he's going to do. He doesn't really want to leave the table, but he needs to pee. And I'm looking over at Eli, and he looks like he's interested in the hand. Like it doesn't look like a situation where he's running off the pee like he doesn't have a shot at it. And like I said, I thought that he had sort of a hand like he did here. And now I look back over to Eric, and Eric's cutting out these 1K chips. And I'm like, what is going on here? And if we can sort of slow it down, he throws out 5,001K chips, and I sort of see a little bit, you can't quite see it on the video all that well, but he sort of puts a little fake shake in his bet. Now, if you're an experienced player, you know that inexperienced players, when they have a big hand, a lot of people will involuntarily shake, and that's a release of tension when they have a big hand. Not when they're bluffing, but when they have a big hand. And I've seen a lot of people that are experienced try to make it look like they're shaking as sort of a false or reverse tell. And that's what I thought Eric was actually doing here with that. Well, I mean, that's what I picked up. I had to put everything together. Now I'm looking at this like, this is unbelievable, right? $5,000 he bets here in the side pot. 5,000 into 3,000. Now, this is where sometimes in Hold'em, we don't usually get into this situation, you actually have to lay a price if you think you're losing in the main pot, or if you think you're calling for a chop. But I'm not calling for a chop here. I thought that I was losing the main pot. By the way, you can see Eli run away from the table, and some of the commentators thought that maybe he was surrendering his hand. I always thought that he was actually kind of strong. And this is a situation where if I think I've lost the main pot, Eric's bet 5,000 into 3,000. So I have to call 5,000 to win 8,000. When somebody bets a pot size bet, you get 2-1. You only need to be good 33% of the time. But when somebody overbets the pot, you actually need to be good more than 33% of the time. And in this case, I'm getting about 1.6 to 1, which is about 38, 39% of the time I'd have to be good. You can sort of memorize these ratios, the pot odds. 2 to 1's 33%, 1.5 to 1's 40%, 1 to 1, like a coin flip, is 50%. You're never going to be at 1 to 1 in poker unless somebody just moves all in and there's no money in the pot. That's the only time you would ever get 1 to 1. We're usually dealing with 2 to 1, 3 to 1, those types of things. But I think that I've lost the main here.
Oh, man.
Yeah, 5K.
Betting into a dry side
By
pot.
the way,
So Bart read your mind, Dan.
well, this is not a dry side pot anymore. So there was 1,200 in the side pot after the flop, but they each put in 1,500 on the turn. So there's now 4,200 in the side pot. So this is 5K into 4,200 in the side.
Yeah, nobody objects.
Man, he's really putting Bart in the pressure cooker.
Eli is going to the bathroom with the winning hands. Just has to.
We open your hand, right?
Man, that kind of hurts Eric's action, kind of saying like if Eli missed.
It looks like Eli missed. Well, that makes Bart more likely to call.
Yeah, so it's bad for Eric is what I'm saying.
Correct. It is bad for Eric. But Eli doesn't know that. He doesn't know if it's good or bad for Eric. Like, it always makes it more likely Bart calls, but that could be good news for Eric. Most of the time it is. Eric's supposed to have it here.
Gotcha. Flop the set. Let's hear Bart's brain thinking out loud. Bart's very good about letting us know what he's thinking.
I mean, you can hear me say, like, I think I've lost the main here. I don't know what to do. And I thought it was very strange. I was fully expecting Eric to check on the river in this particular spot. I really thought that he was going to check with a hand like tens, jacks, queens.
Bart's still in the tank.
I ended up putting it all together. It just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. The entire line, the fact that I thought that he was going to re-raise, pre-flop.
I mean, I would fold aces here.
I love all of Bart's facial expressions. It's like his brain, you could see his brain working here. I think he's going to call. I know Bart loves to make hero calls here. Oh, here he goes. He's going to make the call. Bart's going to call, Dan. He's going to call. Put a 1 in the chat if you think Bart's going to call. Put a 2 in the chat if you think he's going to fold.
Now Eli comes back to the table, and you will hear in a second here.
Loves the call button. You fold, I show. He did the you fold, I show.
that. I know that. So when Eric sort of tells me that if you fold, I'll show, some people think that that's like a huge tell of weakness. I've actually seen people do it either way. But in this particular spot, I actually interpreted it as he was trying to be more comfortable than he actually was. And like I said, you can see Eli is back at the table. Now, what person runs to the bathroom, comes back at the table, and is attentively watching if he was going to bust out of the hand? I really do think that I've actually lost the main pot here. I've lost the main pot, but, you know, maybe sometimes I'm just a calling station.
Chad is very split on what Bart is going to do.
What do you think, Dan?
Lots of ones, lots of twos, and some fours.
What do you think, Dan? He's got the call chips out.
I think he's going to fold.
Oh, he's reaching.
Sorry, no, I'm probably...
4,000.
Where's the action clock when we need it? Throw in the time extension, Bart. We've got a bunch of, I don't know what.
Wow, and
He
calls.
called. I knew it. I knew he was going to call. Oh, no, Eric. This was Eric's first misstep today.
Nice call, Bart Hanson.
Just the way that he was acting.
LOL live reads, Dan.
There it is. Excellent hand. Bart Hanson plays it perfect.
Wow, how did he figure it out, though? He knew exactly what you said, Dan.
I finally make the call, and it all goes back to that pre-flop little flinch that we talked about. Also, too, putting together with the turn bet sizing after the check raise, and then the river bet sizing and the little speech with the board texture. That's what poker is all about. You got to put all the information together, and in this case, I eventually I made the right call, won the side pot, and of course lost the main pot to a straight. Thanks for watching this video. If you like what you've seen here, please hit the subscribe button. And of course, you can check out training videos like this over at crushlivepoker.com. And check out Live at the Bike Tuesdays through Fridays from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. Pacific time. The action is wild and crazy.